Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. There's a report that police in London, Ontario have told members of Canada's 2018 junior hockey team to surrender to face charges of sexual assault. We have a special report from Jerusalem which discusses the potential of more hostages being released by Hamas. And the Lethbridge Police Service has a new armored vehicle they say will help save lives.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. 6 people were killed when a plane crashed in the Northwest Territories on Tuesday. Town Council for the community of Fort Smith say the crash occurred near the banks of the Slave River. 4 passengers and 2 crew members died in the crash. A lone survivor was taken to hospital and later airlifted to Yellowknife. Several people on board were staff members of the mining company Rio Tinto who were en route to a diamond mine. An investigation into the crash is ongoing. Police in London, Ontario are not confirming a report by the Globe and Mail that 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team have been told to surrender to face charges of sexual assault. The report says the pending charges are connected to an alleged group sexual assault of a woman in a London hotel room following a hockey gala back in June of 2018. A number of players from that team are now in the NHL, including the Calgary Flames' Dylan Dubé, who's on an extended leave from the hockey club. The revelation that Hockey Canada quickly settled a woman's $3 million lawsuit in 2022 prompted a series of parliamentary hearings, the resignation of its president, and entire board of directors, along with 3 investigations. Police in Edmonton say a heavily armed man allegedly acted alone when he entered City Hall, opened fire, and threw a Molotov cocktail from the building's 2nd floor on Tuesday morning. An unarmed security guard acted quickly to detain the suspect before police arrived on scene.
The suspect entered City Hall through the parkade. He then proceeded through City Hall with a firearm, firing multiple shots and shattering glass within the building. In addition to the firearm, the suspect was heavily armed with several handled incendiary devices, which we believe to be Molotov cocktails, causing one small fire outside of an elevator. EPS members and City Hall security responded within minutes, putting the building on lockdown and determined the suspect. It is also worth noting that it's an unarmed commissionaire that initially detained this individual. His actions were above and beyond, and for that we are grateful, while the officers got there within mere minutes.
The Edmonton Fire Rescue Service says a captain within their ranks has been charged with child sexual exploitation offenses following an investigation by Alert's Internet Child Exploitation Unit. 54-year-old Christopher McDonald was arrested on January 16th with the help of the Morinville RCMP. He faces a long list of charges, including being in possession of child pornography, accessing and making available child pornography, and 2 counts of unsafe storage of a firearm. ICE began its investigation into McDonald back in October of last year when reports surfaced that he was sharing high volumes of child sexual exploitation items online. A number of computers and electronic devices were seized from his home, which are now being examined to collect further evidence. Israel is in mourning following the recent attack by Hamas, which killed 21 IDF soldiers in Gaza. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell says even with a recent attack by the terrorist group, talks are still underway to free the remaining hostages held by Hamas.
Today, families began to bury the soldiers who died in Gaza. The brother of Lieutenant Hadar Kopluk said goodbye.
My brother, I love you. You are my world. I will take care of Mom, Dad, and the sisters. I will be strong for you, and we will meet in the future.
On Tuesday, the IDF Chief of Staff visited the site where the soldiers died. Hamas terrorists fired RPGs at the building where the IDF was setting explosives.
We, as always, will investigate the incident in depth and learn the lessons while fighting so that such an incident will not happen again.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu mourned along with the nation and vowed to keep fighting.
We bow our heads to the memory of our fallen, and yet we do not for a moment stop striving for an irreplaceable goal, the achievement of total victory. Together we will fight, and God willing, together we will win.
Now, more than 100 days after October 7th, the plight of the hostages remains on the hearts and minds of Israelis. One of the freed hostages described life under Hamas captivity.
I was there for 51 days. There wasn't a minute that we didn't go through something, abuse, in all forms. And they are still there, surviving, barely.
Aviva Siegel described the captives as treated like puppets on a string.
I want to tell you that the terrorists bring inappropriate clothes, dolls' clothes, and they turned these girls into their dolls. Puppets on a string. You can do whatever you want with them, whenever you want. And it's still unbelievable that they are still there.
National Security spokesman John Kirby described the current negotiations to free the hostages as sober and serious. Israeli government spokesman Ilan Levy told CBN News why he wears what he calls hostage dog tags.
You use it as an opportunity to talk about the 253 men, women and children who were abducted from their beds on October 7th, dragged into the Hamas terror dungeons, some with life-changing injuries, limbs blown off, gunshot wounds to the hands, a third of whom have chronic conditions, who have been held incommunicado without access to the Red Cross.
Levi says the clock is ticking.
Time is running out for them. Time has already run out for those who were executed. And we want all friends, allies, and people and nations of conscience around the world to demand their immediate and unconditional release. And until then, to demand that the Red Cross get access to the hostages so it can give them the medical treatment that they desperately need so they can escape from that hellhole alive and safe.
Reports are also surfacing that Hamas fired more than 20 rockets targeting the Israeli city of Nineveh last week. It's located around 2 kilometers from the Gaza border. The Iron Dome anti-missile defense system took out many of the rockets, but one made it through and hit a store in the city. Locals are hoping that the war between Israel and Hamas ends sooner rather than later.
זה מצב שהוא לא פשוט, אבל אנחנו לא מתייאשים, אנחנו מקווים מאוד שהמצב הזה יסתיים בסופו של דבר ושיהיה שקט, וכבר שלא יהיה את המלחמות האלה ויהיה רוגע פה, אבל אנחנו עומדים פה מול אויב שהוא לא פשוט, אבל עם ישראל איתן וחזק, ואנחנו לא מתייאשים.
Closer to home, Lethbridge police officers unveiled their brand new armored rescue vehicle. The unit is replacing a 30-year-old converted truck that police were using for the past 6 years. The old vehicle did not meet safety standards and posed a risk for officers responding to calls. Lethbridge Police Chief Bashim Medizadeh says the rise in tactical deployment over the past 3 years made the purchase necessary.
Unfortunately, the use of our tactical unit has increased every year. Last year, I believe we used our tactical unit 17 times, which was more than the year before, and it seems like a trend. And at any time when we see any potential harm to our members, our employees and the public, certainly when a tactical unit is deployed, we need to deploy them with all the tools that they need, and this is one of those.
Now, the new armored vehicle cost about $500,000, but is expected to last for about 20 years. Tuesday night, Lethbridge City Council members were faced with a huge decision whether or not to save the Lethbridge and District exhibition from financial and operational disaster. As Jeanette Rocher reports now, a vote of no on a memorandum of understanding would have meant the loss of jobs and the closure of a multi-million-dollar facility that just opened its doors mere months ago. But in the end, the majority of council said they would do everything in their power to save it.
January 26th. That's the day the new Board of Governors will take over what would have been a doomed Lethbridge district and exhibition if a proposed memorandum of understanding had not been passed Tuesday night.
The question has been called. All in favor?
Lethbridge City Council voted 7-2 in favor of an MOU that will see an independent third-party review and a new board takeover consisting of Lethbridge City and Lethbridge County administration. Lloyd Brierley is part of the new governance board.
But I can absolutely confidently say that what we've learned in the last 3 weeks was more than we learned in the previous 18 months. So that alone has been insightful, but there is a lot more to go as we work over the next number of months.
The MOU was drafted following last month's council meeting when the exhibition's then CEO Mike Workington approached the city for support, claiming the organization was in huge financial trouble. In early January, 2 full-time city staff provided interim leadership. There is now an estimated shortfall of $6.5 million. City Council last night approved $3.8 million in additional funds required for 2024.
Really, the important part to all of the citizens is the most common thing you would hear. Well, I don't want this on my taxes. So looking at what can we do.
It was also only recently discovered that the new agri-food and trade hub cannot accommodate livestock.
That was one of the biggest surprises to me. This is an agricultural area in southern Alberta, and so if we can't have animals within this building like we did previously, that was a shock, a very big shock.
According to the MOU, the big risk to accepting it is that there will be a significant amount of future operational funding needed from the city, and this could affect budget decisions going forward. But if it were declined by council, the community would have permanently lost the exhibition, its staff would be left jobless, any revenue-generating opportunities would be cut off, Lethbridge residents would lose out on signature community events like Whoop Up Days. It could also impact the relationship between the city and province and the reputation among future investors. Councillors Ray Dodick and Jeff Carlson voted no for the MOU.
I'm not prepared to fund what appears to be an endless money pit. I'm going to vote no.
I didn't know it was going to be $6.5 million, $3.8 million today. Come November, it's going to be $6.5 million. Don't kid yourself. I can't stomach that. I can't stomach coming in November to our community and say, we just spent $5 million out of reserves, one-time funding that we're going to have to recoup somewhere. We are going to have to recoup it somewhere at some point. So it will be coming from tax dollars. And then guess what? Here's another 3.84% increase on your tax bill come January 1. I can't do that.
According to the city, this proposed MOU is still subject to the approval of the Government of Alberta, and future decisions will still need to be made on the decommissioning of the old pavilions and refurbishing of the parking lot. For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Roche.
Now, if you're wanting to park in downtown Lethbridge, be prepared to pay a little bit more if you receive a parking fine. Parking coordinator Philip Berg says certain things will not be costing you extra, however.
There is no changes to parking rates at all. All the changes are only related to the things that were released in the social media there. There is changes to the time of enforcement. Enforcement now will run from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., whereas before it was 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So it allows people to get in, do some early shopping if they want to, or some later in the afternoon shopping without having to pay for the parking.
Adjustments to parking fines will begin on February the 1st. They include fines within the downtown core will be $40, up from $25, with an early payment incentive reduction of $20 if paid within 10 days. Outside of the downtown core, parking fines will increase from $25 to $50, with a $15 reduction if paid within 10 days. The changes are to be carried out as a 2-year pilot project with an update to council after 1 year. Lethbridge City Council is taking measures to address low water levels here in our region. Acting Mayor John Middleton Hope brought forth a motion which passed unanimously at City Council to have the city manager undertake measures to look into water conservation. They include a more collaborative effort with the province to address water supply concerns, exploring programs to incentivize water conservation, examining best practices to determine constructive approaches for not only Lethbridge but also surrounding districts, and to provide monthly updates on the status of drought and water supply conditions. The city's Director of Infrastructure Services, Joel Sanchez, says the wheels have actually been in motion for quite some time now to address our water issues.
We have been working, I will say, with internal stakeholders for over a year and with the province since last summer in terms of the drought conditions and things that are happening in the region, and how it's moving actually faster than what we originally anticipated. And one of the meetings we had was in November last year. At that time, the province knew that we don't have enough water in the reservoirs. In our particular case, it's the Oldman, and in the St. Mary reservoirs, levels were declining fast. And they started the preparation and the work with all the stakeholders. And when I say all the stakeholders, municipalities, the irrigation districts, that's something that is really important because they have over 97% of the licenses. They pull the majority of the water. Municipalities only represent small portions, so that work has been going on for the past few months.
City officials say if you live in Lethbridge, you're asked to complete an online survey in regards to water conservation on the city's website between now and February the 7th. New technology seems to be taking off in the agriculture sector. Farmers were introduced to the use of drones during the Agriculture Services Board conference here in Lethbridge. Jeremy Patton with Medicine Hat College is excited about the possibilities the drones can have in assisting our farming community.
A huge different variety of visual cameras and 8K video, 120 FPS video streaming is very standard. Thermal cameras, near-infrared cameras, multispectral, hyperspectral, LiDAR, and there's even a case of one of the post-secondary institutions here in the province have proven the capability of using ground-penetrating radar mounted on a drone to within a centimetre or so accuracy of conventional ground-penetrating radar.
Experts say the drones can be used to find what plants may need more water and where weeds are growing. And with the help of facial recognition, they can even tell you how many and what cows got out. Studies are still being done to approve the drone to spray chemicals like a crop duster does.
I think the future regulations are coming in are going to make the use of drones, particularly in agriculture, a lot easier. The fact that the maximum weight of the drone on the advanced operations license is moving from 25 kilograms up to 150. When the regulations with the chemicals catch up, that's going to make precision spraying a lot more accessible for farmers. And yeah, it's definitely going to go that way. If you can fly a drone over your crop and spray to kill the weeds rather than driving a tractor through it, why wouldn't you?
Now, drones currently cannot spray chemicals as they're classified as an unmanned aircraft, which hasn't been studied yet for the effects. Gotta love technology. Well, the meltdown for our region continues as we were slightly above the freezing mark again today, and the warming trend will continue for the rest of the week. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. You know, the average high for this time of year in Lethbridge is around -2 degrees. It's nice that we've been well above that lately. Tonight it should be partly cloudy with a low near -2. Thursday, lots of sunshine is on tap with a high expected near 5 degrees. Pretty much the same picture on Friday under a mainly clear sky. Saturday, the mercury will increase to 7 degrees. Now look at that on Sunday. Double digits in the forecast as we should see a high near 11. Monday, a few clouds developing with a high expected near 18. Mainly cloudy with a high near 17 degrees on Tuesday. Now the average high for this time of year is -2 with an average low of -14. The record high was 17 degrees set back in 2005, and the record low was a very cold -41 in 1957. The sun rose at 8:14 and will set at 5:13. Let's see how Thursday's shaping up across the country now. Expect clouds and rain with a high of 9 degrees in Victoria, lots of rain with a high of 8 degrees for Vancouver. It'll be mainly cloudy and 0 in Edmonton on Thursday. Mostly sunny with a high of 4 degrees for Calgary. It'll be partly cloudy and a high of +1 in Regina. A mixture of sun and cloud and -4 degrees for Saskatoon. Expect an overcast sky and -2 degrees for Winnipeg on Thursday. Now in the central part of the country, expect rain or drizzle and a high of 4 degrees in Toronto. A good chance of freezing rain in Ottawa with a high near +1, overcast and -1 for Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect periods of light snow and 4 degrees for Fredericton. Snow mixed with rain and a high of 5 degrees for Halifax. Periods of snow and +1 in Charlottetown. And at St. John's, expect some light flurries and a high near 0 on Thursday. The central bank held its key lending rate steady at 5% today. With inflation still hovering around 3.4%, the move came as no surprise. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says what's keeping inflation higher are housing costs.
With weak demand in the economy, upward pressure on prices should continue to moderate, and inflation is expected to ease further. The share of CPI components that are rising faster than 3% has declined substantially and should continue to normalize. But tightness in some parts of the economy is continuing to hold inflation up. The most prominent of these is housing. Inflation in shelter services remains high, close to 7%, because of rising mortgage interest costs, higher rents, and other housing costs. And while food prices are not increasing as fast as they were, food price inflation is still about 5%.
The Bank of Canada's latest forecast suggests the economy won't rebound until the second half of this year, with inflation dropping to the much-desired target of 2% in 2025. Rona says it's cutting around 300 jobs and closing 2 distribution centers. Company officials say it's part of a plan to adjust its operating model and eliminate inefficiencies. The home improvement retailer says it will close a distribution center in Quebec in March and one in Calgary in October. The move comes after U.S. retailer Lowe's sold Rona and its Lowe's stores in Canada to private equity firm Sycamore Partners in late 2022. Under Sycamore's ownership, the company already announced about 500 job cuts last June and has been converting Lowe's stores in Canada to its Rona Plus brand. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 8 points on the day to finish at 21,025. The Dow was down 99 points to 37,806. The S&P 500 was up 3 points to 4868, and the Nasdaq was up 55 points to finish at 15,481. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 72 cents to 75.09 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 19 cents to 264 US. Gold was down 15 cents to 2,013.74 US an ounce, and silver was up 22 cents to 22.67 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.84 per bushel, barley is at $6.42, canola is at $13.95, and corn is at $7.62 per bushel. Live cattle February contract was up 70 cents to 175.35. Feeder cattle were up 83 cents to 231.83. Lean hogs February contract was up 60 cents to 73.90, and the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.95 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, police in London, Ontario are not confirming a report by the Globe and Mail that 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team have been told to surrender to face charges of sexual assault. The report says the pending charges are connected to an alleged group sexual assault of a woman in a London hotel room following a hockey gala back in June of 2018. There are ways you can naturally heal your body by incorporating certain foods into your diet. Now that's according to naturopathic Dr. Clayton Cogano, who will share details in an interview with Jeanette Rocher shortly. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of our local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Lethbridge Astronomy Society invites you to come to their public observing event on Saturday, January 27th at the Old Man River Observatory at Popson Park from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Over the past 40 years, the Society has built one of the finest amateur astronomy facilities in Canada. It's a great opportunity to view the heavens up close. For further details and free tickets for this event, visit lethbridgeastronomysociety.ca and click on the Eventbrite link. Lethbridge Legal Guidance is a nonprofit society offering free legal advice to low-income Southern Albertans. Some of the areas the society assists in include family, criminal, traffic, immigration, EI, and other issues. For more information and to book an appointment, call 403-380-6338 or visit their website, lethbridgelegalguidance.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Well, what a crazy year it's been for colds, flus, and COVID, and you name it. But there is a way to build your immunity to protect yourself and your family from getting run down by sickness. Our guest today is Dr. Clayton Coganow, who is a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge and the owner of Well Vitality Health Clinic. He's also trained in conventional medicine with a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science Kinesiology and did 3 years of research on radiation and cancer at the University of Lethbridge. It's great to see you again, Dr. Coganow.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay. So it seems almost everyone you talk to these days in Southern Alberta has had more than their fair share of colds and flu this season, myself included in there, unfortunately. So naturally, people are looking for ways to build up their immune system to stay healthy, right? So how has it been for you at your clinic? Have you seen an increase in people struggling with health issues? What have you seen?
Well, I wouldn't say I see an increase. It definitely always increases around this time of year. It's pretty normal, maybe a little bit more influenza, a little bit more respiratory issues than the past few years. But I also feel like our bodies are just kind of building our immune system back up from kind of being away from everything the last couple years. So it does take a little bit of time to sort of reactivate things and get your immune system used to these things again. And so it's kind of to be expected.
Okay, yeah, interesting. It's interesting that, yeah, how we were almost like on a pause there for a while. And now we're getting back into it, and here we are. So, there's a lot of talk that vitamin D is a good immunity builder. I mean, I've always heard about vitamin C, but tell us a bit about vitamin D.
So vitamin D is quite it has many complex functions in the body. One of them is the immune system. And so its primary thing there is that it's activating cells in your body, immune cells in your body, called T cells. And they're the cells that will recognize a virus or a bacteria. So when something comes into your body, it's those T cells that say, hey, there's something wrong. That sounds the alarm system. And it also activates another cell called a macrophage. And this cell particularly is a type of cell that will go and gobble up the virus or the bacteria and eat it and get rid of it in your body. So that's primarily its kind of role in the immune system, is it's upregulating those immune cells. I mean, it also has a direct antimicrobial effect, so it decreases the ability for these things to replicate, et cetera, and it's an anti-inflammatory. So vitamin D is really, it's a very popular one. It's quite safe, when taken roughly within, the recommended dose. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it also plays a significant role in calcium absorption. So you don't want to take too much of it, because it can actually create a situation where you can have too much calcium going into your body. And it also breaks bone apart to allow formation of stronger bones in a roundabout way. And so it has many roles in the immune system, but it's also something that you don't want to just take copious amounts of, because it has multiple other functions in the body as well.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, I've usually attributed it to like a sunshine. Like if you don't get enough sunshine, vitamin D is a perfect one to take for that. But it's interesting to know that it does so many other things as well.
Yeah. And yeah, most people in Canada are quite deficient in it. And we can test vitamin D. I think it's important to test vitamin D and kind of monitor it to make sure that you aren't taking too much as well. A lot of people are just told a lot of times that, well, you're probably deficient because you're in Canada, and it's true. Most of us are. But once you start taking it, then you also want to make sure you're not taking too much of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess it's true then that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
I know, yeah. For the most part, absolutely. Like there's a lot of things we can do to prevent. Sometimes you just get unlucky, I think, but I do think that there's a lot of things that you can do to help boost your immune system to prevent getting ill in the first place. Absolutely, there is.
Okay. Well, with that said, what are some other supplements that are known to help build immunity?
I mean, there's the ones that a lot of people have heard about, like echinacea, for example, and vitamin C. Those things are great at boosting immune system. Some others that maybe people haven't heard of that are more directly antiviral in nature would be like N-acetylcysteine. Quercetin is another one that actually doubles up as a great natural antihistamine for allergies as well. And then there's also another one that's fantastic is astragalus. It improves your white blood cell count. So it increases your defense, so to speak, against the viruses or bacteria that are in your body. There's so many that you can, try or list off. You don't want to get overwhelmed with taking too many things either.
Yeah, definitely. It can get a little bit, a little bit much sometimes.
A little overwhelming.
Exactly. And then, of course, we've got some colds that are caused by bacteria, and then others are caused by a virus. So I understand that maybe there's some herbs that are antiviral in nature. So
Yes.
Can you maybe explain how those work?
Yeah, so like certain herbs, like for example, like garlic. It's the active component of the garlic. It's called allicin, and that like just specifically will inhibit replication of a virus and even deactivate enzymes which allow it to work properly. So there's quite a bit of research on different supplements that can not only stop a virus, but also slow things down so then your immune system can actually catch up and defeat the virus.
Wow, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how much of a role does stress or anxiety play when it comes to immunity?
It's probably one of the biggest things that I see in my practice is chronic stress and anxiety, which very much go hand in hand a lot of times, specifically to certain hormones that get depleted with these things, cortisol being one of the main ones. And this hormone in your body lowers in response to chronic stress. And initially, your body will be able to handle that. But when your body doesn't have these specific hormones, then you're much more susceptible to getting viruses or bacterial infections, specifically when the cortisol drops. Initially, when your stress is high, your cortisol rises, it goes up. And that actually can improve your immune system, improve your defense against viruses. So chronic stress, chronic depletion of this hormone cortisol will lead to a lowering of your immune system and an inability to handle or deal with stress, which can lead to anxiety.
Oh, terrible.
And so supporting that system is a massively essential thing at helping to prevent viruses and boosting your immune system.
Yeah, so how can we support that then? What are some things that we can do to reduce that stress?
Well, it's difficult. Everybody's different. There's the obvious sort of answer is like, well, do things like exercise and yoga and meditation, etc. I try and tell my patients just to try and look at what's on their plate and take something off their plate if they can, because a lot of times it's life gets very busy and it's very difficult to just say, oh, go do this or go do that. Like you're putting something more on by doing that. So some people can do that and other people they can't. And so I think for people to kind of learn that like it's okay to review what you have on your plate and say no and be able to take things off your plate is a fantastic way to reduce your stress, manage the anxiety as well as doing things that help like exercise and yoga, meditation, etc. Those things.
Right, definitely. What about a proper rest? I've heard that could make a huge difference as well.
It goes hand in hand with stress, and rest. If you're resting more, sleep, for example, is a massive one that plays such an important role because it's such a massive stressor on your cortisol system that if you're not taking things off your plate, if you're not decreasing how much load you have on your body, then it's going to be very difficult to maintain a healthy immune system.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes when we're so stressed and anxiety ridden, it is hard to get proper rest. It's hard to sleep.
They're directly related. You actually need energy and energy systems to fall asleep. So for a lot of people, when they have insomnia or difficulty sleeping, they also have massive issues with their cortisol and their hormones and their energy and their immune system. And the only way to truly fix the sleep is by helping their energy systems, helping their immune system. And there are things directly, that can help benefit sleep, but you almost have to treat it from a dualistic manner. You have to treat both their energy systems to give them more energy in order to then fall asleep.
Yeah, I know. It's a complicated system. Do you recommend melatonin? I've heard some people say don't get dependent on it.
Yeah, so melatonin, I find that melatonin, most patients that come into me have already tried melatonin because it's more well known, and so melatonin is just a hormone, secreted at sleep by a gland in your brain called the pineal gland. And this is something that is more important for the circadian rhythm. So it's more important if you have like jet lag. And in those cases, it works amazingly well for most people. But what I find is that when people come in and they've, most people, even if they haven't tried it, it's rarely the one that's really indicated. I find there's a lot of other sleep support supplements that we can try and even combine together that will help people with sleep more than melatonin.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to your physician, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a pretty complex system, and unfortunately, it's one that we can't test.
That's too bad. Thinking of maybe what we're putting into our bodies here, are there certain types of foods that can help build our immune system? I mean, we've always heard that there is. And on the flip side, what would be the foods that would weaken immune system?
So the ones, I mean, yes, absolutely. There's, foods that are going to support the immune system. Anything with lots of color, fruits and vegetables with lots of color, berries full of antioxidants. They take pressure off of your system, off your body. Citrus fruits tend to be quite high in vitamin C, which boosts your immune system. So like oranges and kiwis, etc., things like that. And then there's foods that produce a lot of stress on the body. So like, for example, alcohol, it puts a ton of stress on the liver. It decreases your ability to process and assimilate nutrients. Foods that are high in sugar are very inflammatory, so they put a lot of pressure on your body that way. Foods that are high in saturated or trans fats are also very difficult for your body to process, and they create a lot of oxidation. And so what your goal is with food is to take pressure off of your system, not to put more pressure on your system. And again, it comes down to stress. Stress isn't always, mental, emotional. Sometimes it can be physical as well. And in the case of food, that's exactly what it is. So, from my practice, I tend to also look at a lot of digestive tract stuff, gut health stuff, because what your goal is to try and take as much load off the body, as much stress off of the body in general, because it will all help.
So many things to think about when we're putting our bodies under stress here. There's so many factors that go into it. Now, I know that your clinic offers something fairly unique, this IV therapy to boost immunity. Can you maybe quickly explain how this works?
Sure. So there's different, so intravenous therapies. There's different ones that you can do. I would say the most common for boosting the immune system would be like an IV nutrient bag. So that would have like a higher dose vitamin C that you could take orally, and then B vitamins, magnesium, calcium, basically a multivitamin in there. Now, the benefit of the IV, because all these IVs, and people will tell you like, well, they're water soluble, you'll just pee them out. And that's very true. They are water soluble, and absolutely you do that. But it's actually the difference between taking a supplement by mouth orally is that when you take it by mouth, it has to go through your digestive tract, which most people that I see have horrible digestive systems that we have to work on. So you lose absorbability there. So you're not absorbing everything. And then it goes into your bloodstream to your liver first. And then your liver will actually remove a lot of the vitamin that you took orally before it goes to all the cells of your body.
Fascinating.
So by the time you take a supplement orally, you're reducing your dosage, you're reducing the amount. Or in the case of, for example, vitamin C, you're unable to take a massive dose because you'll get irritable bowel from taking a high dose of vitamin C. So intravenous therapy is beneficial because it bypasses both of those systems. When you IV someone high dose vitamin C, it doesn't go through the digestive tract. We can give you a much higher dose, and you absorb 100% of everything we give you. So every single cell of your body gets all of the vitamins and all of the minerals that you wouldn't have got just by taking an oral supplement. So what it does is it ramps up all those metabolic and cellular processes. And then your body says, okay, now we'll get rid of the rest. So it is true that you do eventually get rid of it, but it's how it's working in your body that's so massively stronger than just taking an oral supplement. So it is very beneficial.
That is really fascinating. I bet people just come out of there feeling like $1 million.
It's one of the best things we can do for our immune system and energy systems. Yeah.
So interesting. It's been so interesting as always talking to you, but we are out of time. So I thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Dr. Clayton Coconut is a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Well Vitality Health Clinic.
Character influences all areas of our lives, especially our decisions and goals in life. These days, parents are competing with all kinds of influences to protect their children's minds and hearts, praying and hoping that their children will exemplify good character. Joining us to discuss this is Kathy Cook. She is a child development specialist and president of Celebrate Kids, Inc. Her latest book is Parent Differently. Welcome to Bridge City News, Dr. Kathy.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, we're very happy to have you and chat about raising up some good quality human beings. Dr. Kathy, I wanted to ask you, what prompted you to write this book about children and biblical character?
Yeah, I believe that children are capable of much, and I think they can make a difference right now. They don't have to grow up to be somebody, they are somebody. I want to empower them to step out and, when they're kind and polite, when they don't gossip, when they tell the truth, they're changing culture because they're changing the quality of the relationship they're in. Also, I really believe that if their character isn't stellar, then they don't become who God created them to be. They were created to be someone. They have great gifts. We know that from Ephesians 2:10. And if they don't live out a healthy character, they're not going to achieve what God wanted them to achieve. And we all lose out on that. I also wrote the book because parents are frustrated because kids are hard to raise today. And I wanted to give parents some help.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like you're talking about like that adage that says that a rising tide raises all boats, but that we also rise to our level of expectation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's a really good point. Moms and dads are going to be confronted with their character when they read this book. Grandparents and teachers, many of them have already told me that they enjoyed the book, but it was challenging because they realized that if they want their children to be patient, they're going to have to be patient. If they want their kids to be other-centered, they can't be self-centered because children are watching us. So altogether, you're exactly right. We become like those we hang out with, and children become who parents tell them they are. And so it's very, very important that we pay attention.
Well, that's a really good statement that the children are watching and listening, and they're listening for how their parent identifies them.
Yeah.
So can you talk about this quality of character in the parent and why it matters?
Well, it matters because parents matter. Even if adults don't have children, their character matters because we either represent God or we don't in the way that we behave, in the way that we interact with people. Certainly, if you have little ones watching you, they learn a lot from what they see. They learn a lot from what you say. And if they don't match up, if there's no integrity, then kids are confused. When kids are confused, they don't tend to make wise decisions. And so integrity is an important character quality. And when we own up to our mistakes, we actually benefit, our children actually benefit from that because now they're more able to come to us with their mistakes because they know that we can handle it, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it matters. We need to become the very best people that we can be so that they can become the very best people they can be.
Well, that totally puts a different spin on the responsibility parents have, and even aunts and uncles, around that next generation. Could you maybe talk about how parents and aunts and uncles, by extension, or grandparents, can go about teaching the children how to even develop their own character?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I believe in using specific language as an example, rather than telling our children, well, you were really good. And good is almost a non-word. It says that I've judged you, I'm happy, but it doesn't empower the children to do it again. So, well, you were generous. I appreciate that you gave away some of what you own. You were patient when grandma was walking so slow. You looked out for others. You were compassionate. When your brother fell, you didn't laugh. You went to see if he was okay. I love that your heart is becoming compassionate. What does that mean, Mommy? It means that you notice that somebody's in trouble and you want to help. So using specific language is really a very easy way. And you can set a goal as a family and decide the whole family is going to work on generosity or resilience or kindness. And not that your kids call it out in a bad way, because that would be disrespectful, which would be not a good quality to have. But I think that's part of it. I think direct teaching, this is what it is, this is what it isn't. I think using scripture for examples, either specific from Proverbs or a time when Jesus or Daniel or Esther exemplified the character that you want your kids to have, I think is another way to do it.
Yeah. Well, you write that character traits are connected and that understanding this is a key to teaching character. Could you dive a little bit into that?
Yeah, I would love to. I appreciate you asking that question, because I don't want parents overwhelmed listening, going, I can't teach character. It's this big, ugly thing. I say in the book, there's 48 qualities that are worth teaching. There's 13 baker's dozen, the top 13. There's a top 3 of the 13. But what we can do is we can realize they're connected. As an example, we can only be patient when we're other-centered. We realize there's other people in the room that are also involved in this situation. I was in line in an airport. It was a bad situation. Everyone around me is complaining, and I didn't. And that's not about me. That's about God empowering me to be who I say I am. And so I realized that I was patient because I'm optimistic. I believe the best for people and in people. I'm other-centered. And those qualities undergirded my ability to be patient. It doesn't help to say to a kid, be patient, be patient, be patient. Maybe there's reasons that they're not patient, and those are the negative qualities that we need to deal with first. Make sense?
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to look at it. And I like that idea of the baker's dozen. It almost sounds like, I mentioned already, a rising tide raises all boats. So I suppose that if you start teaching a few of these character traits, other ones are just going to get picked up and become a kind of a mass. Could you talk maybe about, you mentioned patience, so could you maybe give an example of how a parent could actually teach on self-centeredness and how that impacts patience?
Oh dear, wow.
Maybe that's too big of a question, but
no, it's a great question, and I appreciate the connection. I think it's huge. First, I want to say that self-centeredness is an epidemic in our world because of technology. We become very self-focused. Hello, selfies. And I'm not opposed to being on technology, but we have to be really careful of that. So when I'm self-centered, the world revolves around me. I'm the most important person in the room, and everybody serves me. So we can teach children what self-centeredness causes. And if they're a believer, they won't like it. And if they want to be a good kid, they're not going to like discovering that these are the beliefs that they're holding. And so, again, rather than saying, you're patient, but be patient, we say, I've noticed that you talk always about yourself. I've noticed that when other people have a conversation and they stop talking, you don't ask them to elaborate on their story. You tell them your story. So you're very self-focused, and we're not happy about that. Parents have a right to being unhappy about things. Parents have a right to be disappointed. So I'm disappointed in your choice to elevate yourself because other people matter more than we do. We've been trying to raise you up for that. And we've noticed that because you think you're so important, you're quickly irritable, quickly angry, quickly impatient. I think you're judging people. That's why you're impatient. Now, I wouldn't, Michael, I wouldn't do that all as quickly as I just did it. The kid would run from the room. But if you've earned the right to speak truth to children, what children tell me is they want to know how to be well and do well. They don't want to be a problem, most of them. And they will respect the conversation that's, bite-sized, developmentally appropriate for their age and all of that.
Yeah, that's I think a really good way to look at it is the development of the child, their maturity level. But I wanted to ask you, how are children's beliefs connected to their character choices?
Back to the example I just stated. If I believe I'm the most important person in the room, then I don't have to be generous, and I don't have to be kind, and I don't have to care about you, and I don't even have to be agreeable. You all have to be that toward me because I'm the most important person in the room. If I believe that my mom loves my sister more, my mom just affirmed my sister, my mom just spent time with my sister, and so I'm angry and I'm hurt and I'm concerned and maybe confused that mommy doesn't love me as much, then I act out, and now I pick on my sister and I yell at my sister and I tease my sister and I shame my sister. And what moms and dads need to understand is there's always something hidden under the surface. What is it? Because you know what, Michael? None of us are 24/7, 365 impatient or kind or generous or outgoing. There's always things that trigger our choices. And when moms and dads watch long enough and listen deeply enough to figure out what is the thing that's hidden, we talk about that, it can change everything. Kids need to know they're not bad kids. There's a belief that is messing with their mind and their behavior, and we can call that out.
That's really interesting. That's a good perspective to have too on like systemic issues, I suppose, amongst the siblings. Now, how is character connected even to the family values that parents model?
I think that character is, how would I say it? I think character is essential for family values to be passed on. If you have a family value of pro-life, a family value of generosity, a family value of multi-generational love, a family value of adopting, fostering, caring for the widows and the orphans, then you want to pass that on, I would assume, so that your children carry on the vision. Maybe you learned this from your grandparents and you want it to be a part of your name retention, if you will. Then character, it has to be character, that we are known, our characters, our reputation. And as you said in the intro, it does influence our decision making. So I love to say to parents, do you know what you believe? Look around. What's evidence that you believe that? How's your behavior showing up? And then have you taught that to your kids? Have you explained the why and the what? And then do you expect them to develop the kind of character that's going to allow those things to carry on in them?
Yeah. And I am sure that I was just thinking about children. They hear that Santa's watching and has a naughty list and a good list. And once, as parents, you're going to realize that your child actually has the naughty list and the good list for the parents. They're always watching. So what can parents do to ensure that their children, let's say, feel safe to ask for help with decision making, for example?
Right. No, I love that because I want children to go to their parents first. I don't want children to ask Siri on the phone. Because Siri's a liberally programmed computer that doesn't know them, love them, or know or love their God, and it's actually very dangerous. So we've got to be really careful. So, Michael, we have to be present without our phones. We have to want to have fun with our children. If our children don't enjoy us, they're more likely to, if you will, stay away. If every conversation is always serious, they're not going to want to have conversations with us. So do we go, on bike rides, or do we shovel together and make it a game of sorts? Do we hang out? Children tell me all the time, I wish my daddy liked me. He has to love me. He doesn't have a choice. I wish he liked me. So if you want your children to feel safe, you have to know them, and they have to believe that you know them, what turns them on and what ticks them off. And bottom line, be available. A lot of kids like talking about tough stuff in the dark. They don't want to look into your eyes when they know they're going to scare you or disappoint you. So if you want to talk about their dishonesty or the fact that they've been unkind lately, or whatever the situation may be, maybe they're not very grateful and they're entitled and you're sick of it because this is the season of giving and all they're talking about is getting. Talk in the dark. They're often more intimate there. You can go for car rides. They love that. They can't look into your eyes. And so you might be able to get them to talk more.
Wow, that explains a lot. I never thought of the indirect eye contact for having that conversation. I'm definitely going to have to use that one over Christmas when I'm around the nieces and the nephews. So I wanted to ask you, when identifying positive character traits to develop in our children, why is it important to also identify and talk about their negative traits?
Yes, thanks for asking that. In my book, I include an appendix of the 48 qualities, and for each of the positives, I do list out the negatives because children have to know what to change out of. Ephesians 4 has a change process embedded in it, verses 22 through 24. We take off the old self and we put on the new self, and we change our mind, which happens in the Word of God. And so, and often parents tell me that it's the negative quality that they observe, right? They're sick and tired of their kids arguing or debating or, gossip or lying or unfriendly behavior, the lack of loyalty. They're irresponsible. They see the negatives. And the negative will often say, oh, it's responsibility that I need to help my kid with. Now, responsibility means they have to be honest and humble, but they're also prideful. So it allows us to see, again, the connection of the positives, and also the negatives are connected. And so we need to use the language specifically again and help them remove the negative. We don't want you to behave this way. We want you to behave this way. And it gives children something to point for, and it gives them an awareness of what to stop doing. Isaiah says, Isaiah chapter 1, take off and stop doing what's wrong and start doing what's right. Isaiah 1, stop doing what's wrong and start doing what's right. Kids need to know both.
Right. And it's really interesting the way that they're connected and their opposites are connected. So I wanted to ask you, in what ways do the positive and negative consequences build biblical character in children?
Yes, one of the most important things we have to do is get out of our children's way, meaning that we allow the consequences to do their work. If your children gossip, their friends are not going to trust them with the innermost thoughts of their mind and heart, and your children will be disappointed. They're going to have to learn to earn back their trust. One of the most important things I think that parents can do when we talk about modeling behavior is talk about what happened if you made a bad choice. True story, a gentleman who's reading my book went to work and forgot to finish a report. He got stuck doing what he wanted to do, did not do what his boss needed him to do. There was a knock on the door at 3:00. Where's the report? I needed it at 2. The guy was embarrassed. He comes home and the boy says, "How was your day, Dad?" And that dad admitted to the son and daughter that he made a mistake. You know, sometimes you do the same thing, don't you? You get stuck doing what you want to do rather than what you're supposed to do. And I was caught. I'm embarrassed. I'm going to have to build back trust with my boss. I can't go to your soccer game because I messed up and I have to stay home and finish it. He might not assign me an important task for a while because he doesn't trust me, and that's on me. That's not on him being a bad boss. He's a good boss. So we talk about that, and we show them there is a consequence for our decision. And then this dad said to his son and daughter, "Hey, by the way, there's always a report due every Tuesday at 2, but it wasn't in my calendar. I put a Tuesday 2:00 reminder. I put a Monday 2:00 reminder, report due in 24 hours." So he showed the kids that there was a solution that could help him change his behavior. We can talk about those kinds of things.
Well, that's a really smart way to, chat with your children, develop character, and also develop those traits like having a schedule and an honest dialogue with your superiors. So, Dr. Kathy, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for caring about my book and what I believe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a delight. That was Dr. Kathy Cook. She is a child development specialist and president of Celebrate Kids, Inc. You can visit her website at www.celebratekids.com to see her latest book, which is called Parent Differently. For all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Michael Clausen. Thanks for watching.